Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Hawk Blogger Mornings. I am Brian Hauser. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all of the places at Hawk Blogger. You can find me this Sunday, just cozied up at home. It's a bit of a wet Sunday, you know. Had some hopes of maybe getting out golfing with my buddies, but I think we're all gonna stay in the comfy confines of the home and got a good show for you today. I'm excited about the show today. I think a lot of you have had questions about the topic we're going to cover today, which is specifically what's the deal with visits? There are visits at the Senior Bowl, there are visits at the Combine, there are these 30 visits. Which of them matter? Have they mattered in the past? And after we look at which of those visits have mattered in the past, also who have the Seahawks had visits with so far? So we're going to take our sweet time this Sunday morning, because where else do you have to be than right here together with all of us to talk about what's going on with the Seahawks in this draft. And I would be crazy to not remind you all, if you haven't already, please make sure that you give the show a like. Helps people find it, helps the community grow. Click subscribe and join the growing crew there. And as a matter of fact, I got something to announce. I feel like I'm doing this every other episode lately. It was just a few days ago we did 16,000 subscribers, and a few days before that we did 15. We are up to 17,000 subscribers, and I want to thank everybody for joining the channel, joining the community. And I was at a YouTube creator event in at the Palace Kitchen on Friday. And this guy, Benji TV, invited me. I'd been to a few of these things before. And I gotta say, like, I am not the typical creator, and I don't think about myself as a creator. I just think about myself as a Seahawks fan who, reports about the team and analyzes what's going on and uses whatever mechanism to build community around it. But it, you know, it is humbling to see what people have done. I talked to a couple who was up in, I want to say Enumclaw. I know they were like an hour north, and the wife had started with some, home decor stuff and moved into other things. Like, it's their full-time jobs. They have, she was like, oh, I remember, when I started 11 years ago, we were still tiny. We had like 16,000 subscribers. I was like, yeah, I remember that too. But there's always some cool people that I meet there. There's also some folks that you'd expect that are, living their life through a camera, which I try not to do. But in any event, I'm still pretty excited about getting to 17,000 subscribers. And I'm also really excited about episode 365. So Tuesday, episode 365, we got some giveaways. So we'll have some stuff from JK Boots. And I mentioned yesterday that the promotion with JK Boots has changed. It's even better than it's ever been. If you use code HawkBlogger, you get 75 bucks off. 75 bucks. That is a lot of money. 75 bucks off. And every time you use code HawkBlogger, I'm going to donate $15 to the Wildland Firefighters Foundation to help them keep our Northwest forests safe from fire. So really, really cool deal. And we're going to have some giveaways from JK Boots on Tuesday for episode 365. I've got a bunch of voicemails that people have started to send. If you want to send me a voicemail for consideration, use your voice app on your phone, your voice memo app, record a quick message, send it to me at brian@hawkblogger.com just to attach it to an email. I'll get it. And I won't be able to play all of them probably, but I'll play a few of them and would love to bring your voices into it. Trying to get some other giveaways. I know for sure we will at least have Sam Monson from 33rd Team as a guest. I may bring some other people on, but time will tell. So keep an eye on. Make sure you click that bell to get notified when I go live. All right. So let's talk about visits, because that's the whole point of why you're here, right? Is to listen to what's going on there. And yes, I had a little bit of fun with my thumbnail. Hopefully you guys are enjoying my thumbnail. I don't know how I feel about the font on this one. I'll be honest. I'm not sure how I feel about the band, the green band at the bottom. Kind of breaks up the image, but I really do like the effect I got on John Schneider was pretty cool. I feel pretty good about that. So yeah, I think the point here is I saw some folks that were debating whether these visits matter. They're like, oh, they're just smoke screens. And I'm like, are they? I don't think they are. And so let's actually go through and talk facts. This is an interpretation, this is facts. And the other thing that I will say as I do this is we don't know all the visits. So there's going to be some times I'm going to show you some information and it might be incomplete. It's possible that they visited somebody that we don't know at the combine on a 30 visit. This is all that I could dig up from reported visits that are sourced. So it's incomplete. But even with that in mind, let's take a look. Let's walk back through the last few drafts. And we'll start with the 2024 draft. So we're going to go backwards in time, 1 year at a time. And the three types of visits I'm going to talk about are Senior Bowl, Combine, and 30 visits. And let me just kind of give a brief explanation of what those are. So Senior Bowl is anybody that is invited to the Senior Bowl meets with every single team. So if you were on the Senior Bowl roster, you met with every team in attendance at the Senior Bowl, okay? Now, that's, they're going to hear people, report this team met with this guy at the Senior Bowl. Well, every team met with that guy at the Senior Bowl. So that's kind of how it works. Combine visits there's formal and there's informal. And you have, I think, a certain amount of formal visits that you can use. And they are not reported. Generally, unless someone asks about them, you don't have confirmation. So I think these are the least likely to be comprehensive of all the visit types that you'd hear about. And then 30 visits, you get 30 visits with draft prospects ahead of the draft to come to your facility, not to work out, but just I think you could do some medical. I think you can do some additional just, screening, talking to the person, getting to know them. And there is an exception to this 30 visit rule, which is if you are a local kid, if you are somebody who has gone to school in that state, you can visit and it doesn't count against your 30 limited slots. Okay. So that's what a 30 visit is. Sometimes people talk about them as your top 30 visits. That's misleading. It has nothing to do with whether they're a top prospect or in your top 30. It has nothing, it's just a 30 visit. It's one of your 30 slots. Okay. So I wanted to kind of go through and there's a couple things on here that I may have to correct along the way because I hate being late. I really do. And I said this show was going to start at 9:15 and then I wanted to have this visual because I think it's just easier to see it than just me talking through it. And it's easier than looking at a spreadsheet. So I took some time to put these graphics together, which took me a little longer than I expected. But let's talk about it. So I'm going to read some of these out. I'm going to read all of them out because some people listen to this show, which you can get this podcast now on audio version anywhere you get your podcasts. And I'd really, really appreciate a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. That really helps the show grow and really appreciate it. But in any event, Byron Murphy, first round pick last year. Now, he was on the Senior Bowl roster, but he did not attend. So I have him as a /, not an X, because one of the things I think that implies is you get information about that player from being selected to the Senior Bowl. And Jim Nagy, who was the person leading the Senior Bowl up until now, up through this year, he's now working at University of Oklahoma. He and John Schneider were very tight. And so he used to work for John Schneider and certainly would share information with John Schneider. And so when somebody was on the Senior Bowl roster, you can be sure that John Schneider was getting a lot of insights from Jim Nagy that maybe other teams weren't. Maybe they were, but I know for sure John Schneider was getting every bit of detail that he wanted from Jim Nagy. So what happens there is Jim Nagy and his team, they do extensive scouting on guys in the college ranks, and so they have a ton of information that kind of can extend even what the NFL teams have, with what they do. So Byron Murphy was invited to the Senior Bowl. I'm 90% sure he did not attend, so I don't know if he had a meeting with them or not. Probably not, but I have at least a slash because he was on the Senior Bowl roster. They did meet at the Combine, and they had a 30 visit. So they did all the visit types with Byron Murphy last year, and then he ended up being their first round pick. Christian Haynes, their third round pick, it was invited to the Senior Bowl. So they met him at the Senior Bowl. Okay. Tyrese Knight, fourth round pick, was at the Senior Bowl. So they met him at the Senior Bowl. They also had a 30 visit with Tyrese Knight. So 2 visits, draft pick. AJ Barner, Senior Bowl, had a visit with him there. DJ James, the cornerback, Senior Bowl, had a visit with him there. Nehemiah Pritchett, Senior Bowl, had a visit with him there. So you basically had pretty much, and I want to double check something because I thought Satawa, yeah, Satawa Lamea was also Senior Bowl. Okay, I thought something might be wrong here. Okay, let's make that change in real time because, gosh darn it, that's not what I wanted to do. Because I was pretty sure that he was a Senior Bowl guy, and he was. Okay, so let's get that back going here. All right. So, and then Mike Jarrell was not a Senior Bowl or Combine visit, but he was a 30 visit. Are you getting a picture here? Do you think the Senior Bowl matters? You had 6 of the 8 picks actually at the Senior Bowl, 7 of the 8 picks invited to the Senior Bowl. Okay, so Senior Bowl participation is a pretty good indicator of Seahawks interest and familiarity. You have 3 of these guys, Byron Murphy, Tyrese Knight, and Mike Jarrell, that had confirmed 30 visits. You only had 1 Combine visit that was confirmed. And again, I think the Combine visits are the most misleading because, like, if I wasn't there this year asking these prospects if they met with the Seahawks, nobody else would tell you. Like, you'd have maybe a couple reports come out. So I think in the past, Corbin has been at some of these and he's asked, but again, I couldn't even ask everybody. So Nathan Ernst, like, we were both there. We were asking, we definitely didn't get all the names of the people that they met with. So Combine visits, I think, are least solid information, but still, worth understanding. All right. So that was the 2024 draft. You get to the 2023 draft, and Devin Witherspoon was a 30 visit. JSN had no visits, at least as far as I could find. Derek Hall, Senior Bowl. Zach Charbonnet, Combine. Now, I thought Zach Charbonnet was Senior Bowl as well. Let me double check. Did he participate at the Senior Bowl? Yeah, I don't know. Let me double check one more place. Zach Charbonnet. Yeah, maybe not. As far as I could tell, I can't confirm that he was on a Senior Bowl roster. But he did have a Combine visit with them. Anthony Bradford had a 30 visit with them. Olu Oluwatimi, Senior Bowl. Mike Morris, Combine visit. Cam Young, no visits. Jarek Reed was excuse me, guys. Jarek Reed was a 30 visit. That's in the wrong place. You can tell I did this last second. Sorry, guys. But I'm going to try to get it right at least. Jarek Reed was a 30 visit. Kenny McIntosh was at the Senior Bowl. So again, in this case, you get a visit of some sort with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of your picks. And they had 3, 6, 9, they had 10 picks. So 8 of their 10 picks, they had a visit of some sort with. Do visits matter? Yes, visits matter. They are indicative of how confident the team is. And I want to say for a second, one of the things we heard from John Schneider of a change that they've made over the last few years to their drafting philosophy is, one, not to reach. We've heard that. But two, that they're really trying to get to know these guys, that they're trying to get to know the person and how that person is going to fit in versus just evaluating the player. And if you go beyond 2020 or so, the amount of visits, like the visit coincidence with their drafting is much more spotty. So I think that they're putting more emphasis on guys that they are spending time with than maybe they did in the past. All right, let's keep going. Let's look at 2022. 2022 draft. And for this, Charles Cross, from what I could see, did not have a visit with them. Now, again, could be at the combine. I think I would say it's probably even likely it was at the combine, but don't have confirmation on that. Boye Mafe had both a visit at the Senior Bowl and a 30 visit. Kenneth Walker, from what I could see, did not have a visit. Abe Lucas, Senior Bowl and combine. Kobe Bryant, the current Kobe Bryant, the safety, had a 30 visit. Tariq Woolen was at the Senior Bowl. Tyreek Smith, one of their 5th round picks, was at the Senior Bowl and had a combine visit. Bo Melton, the wide receiver, 6th round pick, they met him at the Senior Bowl, and Derek Young was a 30 visit. And so again, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of your draft picks, 7 of your 9 picks the team visited with prior to picking. And one of the things I want to kind of rewind and look at is 30 visits are not necessarily indicative of your top players. They use 30 visits in at least 2 different ways. One is if they have a top pick, they want to be really sure. And so they want to spend as much time with the guys that they're having an eye on for that top pick as possible. That's one way they use 30 visits. The other way they use 30 visits is to kind of pre-recruit undrafted free agents or guys toward the end of the draft. So you'll see guys, I didn't include these, but undrafted free agents, like last year, Nelson Caesar was a 30 visit and became an undrafted free agent signing for them. They try to sell guys on coming to Seattle who they think might be undrafted free agents because they can't make them come to Seattle as undrafted free agents, but they can entice them to do so. But that also blends into some late round picks. So Derek Young was a 30 visit, a 7th round pick. Kenny McIntosh, Jarek Reed was a 6th round pick. Mike Jarrell was a 6th round pick. So you have these 30 visits that are later as well. It's not just indicative of this guy's going to be a top pick for the Seahawks. And as I share kind of where some of the visits are so far, you'll see at least some examples of that as well. And I think I got, well, we'll see if I got it right when we get there. But there's one name I'm not sure I included. All right, so those are the last three drafts. And I think, as you can tell, it's pretty dang clear that visits matter. They're very predictive of the Seahawks having a potential interest in that player. And if you want to count it up, Senior Bowl is the most. So we've got 3, 5 from this class. That makes it 8. And then if you want to be really stingy about it, you'd say 14. And I think you could make it 15 because Byron Murphy was on that list. He just didn't attend. 14 or 15 of the last 3 years of draft picks have been Senior Bowl guys. So if they're at the Senior Bowl, there's a decent chance that they're going to be a pick for the Seahawks somewhere along the way. Now, I'm not going to list out every guy that's at the Senior Bowl, but it's a long list. There's a lot of guys that are there. You can be sure that they've met with some of them. I can bring up that list and we can kind of look at it together if we're kind of interested in seeing. But it's a long list of names. So I'll do that after I go through the next two lists, which are a little bit more custom built. Before I do that, make sure you give the show a like, click subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. And feel free to leave a super chat. I'll get to those once I'm done with this initial piece of info. All right. So here are the guys that either myself or Nathan Ernst were able to confirm the Seahawks had combine visits for. So I think we have more combine visit information than we do in previous years. So Gray Zabel, Tyler Booker, Tate Ratledge. I'll tell you who these, like Gray Zabel, obviously offensive line, interior offensive line. Tyler Booker, guard. Tate Ratledge, a guard. Jonas Avenaya, guard. Jackson Dart, the quarterback. Jared Wilson, the center. Donovan Jackson, a guard. Armand Membu, tackle/guard. Azariah Thomas, the cornerback. Kobe Bryant, another cornerback. This is Cobee Bryant. Terrence Ferguson, the tight end from Oregon. Jalen Conyers, the kind of do-everything tight end, wildcat quarterback, fullback. Brendan Crenshaw-Dixon, who is been a tackle, but probably they'll look at as a guard. Jalen Rivers, a tackle. Will Campbell, tackle/guard. Cam Williams, tackle, maybe a guard. Clay Webb, interior offensive lineman. Logan Brown, should say Logan Brown, not Logan Browns. Let's correct that because it's going to drive me crazy. There we go. Logan Brown, offensive tackle. Maybe they're looking at him as a guard. Jalen Knoll, the wide receiver. Shamar Stewart, the edge rusher. And Nick Emenwari, the safety. Now, I admit I was not spending as much time on receivers while I was there. That was DK Metcalf was still on the team. DK Metcalf, by all team accounts, expected to be on the team. It did not seem like wide receiver was going to be a heavy emphasis for the Seahawks. So I would bet they met with more receivers than we know of, but we at least know about Jalen Knoll. So you have a pretty good list of guys here. A lot of these are guys that we've talked about that the Seahawks have met with. So a little bit more of a full list from Combine than we've had in past years. 30 visits. Now this is pretty short to begin with because we only have a few confirmed so far. Nick Emenwari, Savion Williams, who is a wide receiver, running back, kind of slash player from TCU, the same place that Jack Besh is from. Tyler Shuck, the quarterback. Issa Pohl, he is a local visit, so he went to WSU, so he will not count against their 30 limit, but he is a visit. And then Bryce Cabledew, this was reported by Tony Pauline. He is an offensive lineman that they're going to look at as a guard. And so the way I read this is Issa Pohl, Bryce Cabledew, these are good examples of guys that are probably undrafted free agents or toward the end of the draft that they might look at as potential prospects. But Nick Emenwari, combine visit, 30 visit. That's interesting. And I think that's worth note. I would not ignore it. Ignore it at your peril. Savion Williams, I think is interesting. He is not an end of the draft kind of guy. He's a very talented athlete. I read that as I didn't have the best impression of Savion Williams when I was at the combine and talked to him for a little bit. He's very cold and standoffish and just didn't get a great vibe. Could mean absolutely nothing, but it could be also be that the team wants to get a better feel for who he is and what kind of worker he is and how much he loves the game. And so that could just be like, hey, this guy's massively talented. What kind of person is he? Tyler Shuck is an interesting one as well. You've heard me talk about him since the Senior Bowl. He was at the Senior Bowl. So this is a second guy. Didn't ask him at the combine if they did a visit with him, but that's at least 2 visits with Tyler Shuck because they met with him at the Senior Bowl. They now have met with him at a 30 visit. And when John Schneider said there was a couple guys that threw the ball pretty well at the combine that they're going to have to spend some extra time on, I've always assumed Tyler Shuck was one of those names. And I think this further, lends credence to that being a likely reality. So those are the visits that we know of so far. And I can bring up for you the rosters of on the Senior Bowl. Okay, so we can look at this together. It's, a long list of names. And the point here is that make this bigger, that they have met with every one of these guys. So let's start. I'm not going to read every name off because that's crazy talk. Whoops. But some names that are worth knowing. I mean, Jackson Dart, Jalen Milroe, Riley Leonard, they've met with all those guys, those quarterbacks. Wide receiver, Isaac Tesla is a guy that I still like athletically. I think he's an interesting wide receiver. He had a good Senior Bowl week. They've met with Jack Besh because he was at the Senior Bowl. They met with Ty Felton, Arian Smith, Jalen Royals. We know that they met at the Senior Bowl. Tight end, Jake Bringingstool, who's a guy that a lot of people see as a fullback prospect, not just a tight end. Jackson Haas, a good blocking tight end. On the offensive line, so Logan Brown, we now know they've met with him twice. They met with him here. They met with him at the Combine. We know that they've met with Willie Lampkin because he was at the Senior Bowl. Jackson Slater, we know they actually met with him twice at the Senior Bowl. Don't have any other visits that we know of there. Miles Frazier, who I like, Jonas Avenaya. They've now met with him twice, the Senior Bowl and the Combine. And then Clay Webb, similarly, Senior Bowl, Combine. They met with them both there. I still think Carson Vincent is a sleeper for this team. His like infectious love of football just screams to me a guy that's going to really get the Seahawks' attention. He's a project, but I think he's a guy I would take a flyer on for sure. Massive guy, pretty athletic as well. Mac McWilliams, the corner. Upton Stout, the corner. We know they've met with those guys. Linebacker wise, they've met with Demetrius Knight and Jack Kaiser because they were at the Senior Bowl. They've met with, I guess, Princey Umanamelian is an edge player that is, going to be highly picked. Savion Jones from LSU, they've met with him. So they've met with those guys. And then there's the National League roster. So they've met with Tyler Shuck at the Senior Bowl and as a 30 visit. Don't know if they met at the Combine, but that's a lot of Tyler Shuck time. They have met with Jaden Higgins, the receiver, at the Senior Bowl. They met with Kyle Williams, the receiver from WSU, at the Senior Bowl. It'd be interesting if he gets a 30 visit, given that he's in the state. They could do it without taking up one of their slots. Jalen Knoll, they've met with him twice. Senior Bowl, Combine. Okay? Harold Fannin, the tight end / H-back, they've met with him. Elijah Arroyo, they've met with him. And was Terrence Ferguson not on the list up here? Well, he was there. So this must be an earlier. This is an early. So they met with Terrence Ferguson twice at least at the Senior Bowl because he was there and at the Combine. By the way, these rosters changed because players kind of come or don't come and they fill them in. They met with Marcus Bowe. Again, Jalen Rivers, they've met with him at the Senior Bowl. They met with him at the Combine. So that's 2 visits for him. Jalen Travis, who I like quite a bit, they met with him at the Senior Bowl. Wyatt Milam, they met with him. Gray Zabel, twice. Senior Bowl, Combine. We know that they've met with him a couple of times. Other names. They they have met with Darian Porter. Worth noting that. They have met with Jeffrey Bassa, Nick Martin at linebacker. They've met with Josh Farmer, a defensive lineman who I think is a really interesting name. Darius Alexander, another one. Ty Robinson, who I think a lot of us like quite a bit. David Walker, the edge that I've talked about a lot. Oluwafemi Oladejo, the edge from UCLA. So you've got a good long list of guys that they've met with over the last few weeks, right? So what does all this mean? Well, the way I look at it is there's a few players that the Seahawks have met a couple of times with, and the likelihood is that their interest in those players is real. I think the Nick Emenwari thing is real. I think Tyler Shuck is a pretty interesting one as a guy that they've met with in multiple places. I think Gray Zabel, no shock there, met with him multiple places. Tate Ratledge, they met with him both at the Senior Bowl and at the Combine. Jonas Savanaya, they met with him twice. They've met with Jackson Dart twice. Now, they met with Armand Membu twice, but I think that ship has sailed. Jalen Knoll, the wide receiver, they met with a couple of times. Shamar Stewart, edge player, they've met with him at the Combine and at the Senior Bowl. So some of these names are not just, hey, that would be cool. They're guys that are gaining a little bit of smoke behind them as potential connected players to the Seahawks for this draft. So I just wanted to kind of get that out there, that this notion that visits are smokescreen, no, they're not. And it does not mean that every player that they visit is going to be drafted, but every reported visit that and contact the team has with the player does increase the odds that that player is going to be a Seahawks draft pick. It does. That's the reality. So hopefully that clears some things up, and I'll keep this 30 visit kind of stuff updated as we go along. We'll talk about that together as we march toward the draft. After all, this show is on 365 days a year. This is episode 363. We are 2 days away from episode 365. So make sure you are here Tuesday. You will not want to miss episode 365, where we celebrate 365 straight days of doing this show together and just kind of growing this community. With that, let me get to some super chats. Make sure you give the show a like, click subscribe. I would appreciate it, and you won't regret it. Chris Clark has given away 5 Hawk Blogger memberships. Thank you so much, Chris. Appreciate you doing this. More people coming in. We've literally got thousands of members now, which is very cool. And a huge part of that is how much people gift memberships. Part of the community we're building here is friendly, kind, generous people. It's part of why I've worked out this deal with JK Boots of having charity as a part of what we do there. You use code HawkBlogger, you get $75 off, and $15 go to the Wildland Firefighters Foundation. It's part of why we've given away almost $300,000 to charity over the years. So I love it when people give away these memberships. It's kind of part of the core brand, I think, that we're trying to build together. And if you get one of these free memberships, consider paying it forward, giving it to somebody else. Also consider upgrading to club level, because if you upgrade to club level, you get access to the Discord channel. Club level or higher. Suite level as well gets access to the Discord channel. The instructions for how to do so are up on the community tab of the YouTube channel. Or you can just search for, connect my Discord account to my YouTube account, and that'll work as well. And the Discord channel is awesome. We've now got a channel for Seahawks specific news, NFC West news, NFL news. And so you can just kind of go in there, and it's kind of this curated view of news happening. Pop in, instead of having to comb through Twitter and what's real, what's not, you could just go in there, get some curated view and a conversation with all these folks in between shows. So great time to upgrade to club level or higher, or go to patreon.com/hawkblogger, sign up there. That also will get you access to the Discord channel. All right, Chris Clark says also 17,000 subscribers. Outstanding. Thank you, Brian, and all the members, man. Well, thank you, Chris. I really appreciate your generosity and support. It's really cool. Hawks fan Madman, where do you think the Seahawks would realistically have to target Tyler Shuck in the draft if they are interested? I mean, everyone is focused on his age. Everyone's like, he's just like a year or two younger than Sam Darnold. What are we talking about? First of all, I'll just say this. It doesn't really matter. Like, yeah, it matters a little bit that he's older, but what matters is what his salary is going to be. Like, rookie quarterbacks are affordable. And if you could have Sam Darnold, like just say like equal to Sam Darnold's performance, whatever it is, but you're able to have it at a rookie salaries price, that's still really valuable. Like, I just want to be really clear. People get caught up in this age thing a little bit too much. It's not ideal. You'd rather have as young as possible because that extends the tenure. But if you draft a 25-year-old prospect, they could still play 10 years for your franchise, like easy. So I don't think that age is a huge deal here. I do think it pushes him down a little bit. I also think that he has just not been as celebrated of a prospect, and I think people are coming to him late. I still think he's a day 2 guy. I don't think he's going to sneak into the first round. I don't think he's going to be a day 3 guy. I don't think you're going to get him in the 4th round or 5th round. I think it's probably going to be, if I had to guess, I think he's a 3rd round pick. Maybe he gets bid up into the 2nd round, but I think he's going to be a day 2 prospect. So I think you'd probably have to use one of your 3rd round picks on him in order to get Tyler Shuck, if that's a guy that they want to get. All right. So curious. Just checking to see if there are other super chats. There are not. So let's go ahead and do a little bit of a themed mock draft. And we haven't done a PFF mock draft for a while, partially because I think that their top 100 is a little bit crazy sometimes. And so I think you get some really odd results. And let's do it anyway, though. Let's do it anyway. See how we feel about it. And we'll use the visits as a little bit of a indicator of whether or not this is a good match for the Seahawks, okay? So let's start our draft. And sorry, I saw something in chat. Don't know. Anyway, so let's keep going. So here we are at pick 18, and we're going to try to focus on guys that the Seahawks have had confirmed visits with, all right? And Kelvin Banks is a guy that we actually said we confirmed he did not visit with them at the combine, at least, all right? Shamar Stewart, they did visit. We know that. Gray Zabel, we know they've visited multiple times. As I scroll through this, Landon Jackson, they would have met at the Senior Bowl. Nick Manwari, we know they visited with him multiple times. I think they've got him way down the list. So let's trade back if we can. They want pick 49. No, thank you. I don't think we're going to do that. Let's look at the Texans have. They've got multiple thirds. Let's trade with them and get their. We're going to get a later 3rd round pick just to try to make this a little bit more realistic. They're not interested in trading, you bastards. Well, let's try with the Packers. Let's give the Packers 18, and we will take. They're not interested in trading. Well, Stop being jerks. Why wouldn't you be interested in trading for this pick? You should be. Um, Interesting. All right. Well, we're not going to trade then. Fine. You guys just are stuck with your own stuff. We're going to stick with what we want. So at 18, we are going to go with Shamar Stewart. We're going to go with a guy that they have met with at the combine and a guy that we haven't drafted in the first round in a while. If we really wanted to go by visits, I think we'd be going with either Gray Zabel or Nick Emanwari. Maybe we take Gray Zabel here. Maybe we take Gray Zabel. So they've had more visits with him. It just makes a lot of sense. We're going to take Gray Zabel. So Zabel's off the board. Now we're at pick 50. And we're going to go with other guys. Now, both Landon Jaxley and Princely Emanamelian were at the Senior Bowl, so they would have met with them. Xavier Restrepo was at the Senior Bowl. So was Elijah Arroyo, Darian Porter. Omar Norman Lott was at the Senior Bowl. Azariah Thomas, we know they've met with a couple of times. As I look through this list, Mason Taylor was at the Senior Bowl, so we know that they've met with him as well. Terrence Ferguson, they've met with a couple of times. Jared Wilson, we know they've met with him. So we've got 2 of the next 3 picks. And we've got our offensive lineman. I think that the next most obvious pick, let's see where they are with quarterbacks. Wow, God. See, I mean, look at the rank for Jackson Dart. It's just so unrealistic. It's so unrealistic. I just don't like it. I am thinking about either Elijah Arroyo or Mason Taylor with this pick. And I think I've been like leaning towards Mason Taylor lately. So we're gonna take Mason Taylor. But let me check out receiver real quick. Where are we on receiver? Oh, there's Savion Williams. So let's go ahead and take. Where is he? Let's take Mason Taylor. Now we're back up again. And I could go, I think Omar Norman Lott they met with at the Senior Bowl. I could definitely go that direction, but I'd take him a lot to maybe try to go a little farther afield. They met with Chris Paul at, I think, the Shrine Bowl or the Hula Bowl or something like that. Terrence Ferguson, they've met with a couple of times. Actually, I probably should have saved it. It takes Terrence Ferguson a little later. They did meet with Joshua Farmer at the Senior Bowl. Jared Wilson, they had a great meeting with him. Jalen Knowles there. They met with Jonas Avenaya a couple of times. Tate Ratledge. So, I'm going to take Jared Wilson. I'm tempted to take one of these big defensive linemen. Definitely tempted to take Omar Norman Lott. I like him quite a bit. Yeah, I can't help myself. We're taking Omar Norman Lott. I just like him too much. Sorry. So then we're here at 82. Now, see, this is where I feel like I messed up a little bit because I could have gotten Terrence Ferguson, Josh Farmer, Jordan Phillips, all these guys later on. But we're going to take Jared Wilson almost certainly here. We could take Jalen Knoll. You could, go receiver. Could take Savion Williams. Maybe we take Savion Williams here because we have not done that in a while. Now we have 2 of the next 10 picks. I have real questions about him. Like Josh Farmer's a guy for me that is a really interesting fit for the Seahawks. I think he's a guy that is big. And if you remember Willie Lampkin, when he was on with me, talked about him as being the toughest guy he blocked in the ACC. I really want Jared Wilson on the team, so it's hard to pass him up. This is one of the hardest choices. Jalen Noel, like these are a lot of guys that they've been connected with that I would love to add to the Seahawks. Really tough to pass on some of these guys. I think we are going. Josh Farmer's where I want to go. We're going to take Josh Farmer, even though we took Amar Norman-Lott. Then at 92, we're going to be sitting there and darn it, Jared Wilson's gone. I knew that was going to happen. I regret it. I do. It's true. But we're going to get Savion Williams, okay? A guy that they've met with multiple times that can play multiple positions for you. And I've got questions about him, but he's certainly an enticing athlete. So here we are in the 4th round. We know they met with Willie Lampkin at the Senior Bowl. Same with Dylan Gabriel. Jack Kaiser was at the Senior Bowl, so they met with him. As we kind of scroll down this list, Jake Bringingstool was at the Senior Bowl. They met with him. Kyle Williams, they met with. Kyle McCord. Was he there? No, he was not there. Jackson Haas, we know they've met with Isaac Tesla, who I mentioned before. See, I really like the offensive line prospects in this class. Like, there's a lot of these guys even later that I'd be interested in. But I think the interesting pick here would be Willie Lampkin as a center, but also fullback prospect. I think you could go Will Howard. Jack Kaiser is just like, to me, a really cool linebacker prospect. Let's take a look at who we've picked so far. So we've gone 3 offense, 2 defense. As if we look at interior offensive line, I kind of want to see who's left. Yeah, I think there's some other options later on, but I haven't gotten to draft Willie Lampkin in a while. So we're going to take Willie Lampkin for some fun here. And then we are going to be back up here. We're back up at pick. What pick are we at right now? We are at pick 175. All right, so I think I would take Kyle McCord right here. I really liked him out of Syracuse. I think he's got a lot to offer, and I didn't love his presence, but there was a pretty good video from Bootleg Football where they did some whiteboard stuff with him, and I think he's a totally fine 5th round prospect. No question for me there. And then we get to the other 5th round pick here. And we have not taken a linebacker yet. We have taken a tight end. We have taken a wide receiver. Tyler Shuck is still there, by the way, which is not realistic. Okay, sticking with guys that they've met with. Jonah Monheim they've met with. Ty Felton, they would have met with Ty Felton. Don't believe they met with Jack Nelson. Was Jack Nelson at the Senior Bowl? I don't remember. Jalen Conyers. We know that they met with Jalen Conyers. So that would be another possibility here. Cam Jackson, they would have met at the Senior Bowl. But we've already taken 2 defensive tackles, so I don't think that makes a lot of sense. So let's do this. Let's take... It's kind of between Ty Felton and Jalen Conyers, and we haven't taken Ty Felton for a while. I like Ty Felton. I think he's got some speed to offer and is a good route runner. So we're going to go Ty Felton a little bit here and see how we feel about that after this draft. Okay. So we get all the way to the 7th round. Aronde Gadsden is a pretty easy pick for me here, although Holland Pierce as a swing tackle. But again, let's stick with guys that they've met with. They haven't met with those guys as far as I know. So let's try to stick with guys that they've had some meetings with or some connection. Ty Robinson is still there, which is crazy. I think you definitely would take him. Clay Webb, they have met with him, and I think, yeah, I can definitely make the case for Clay Webb here. So we're going to take Clay Webb in the 7th round. No question there. And then let's take another guy that they've met with. I mean, Ty Robinson is a little crazy to be available this late. I don't believe that. But we can take him if we decide to. Let's keep looking to see other guys. So Nick Martin they would have met with. That might be a good pick here. Shamar James they would have met at the Senior Bowl. Jamar Muhammad. Carson Vinson, that's a guy I like. And let's keep going. Issa Pohl, who they are taking a 30 visit with. Who else? I'm going to keep going. I'm going to go, because this thing, who knows? There's Bryce Cabledew, by the way. Let's take a look at Mr. Cabledew. Look at that zone grade. Very good zone grade for Kansas. That's kind of cool. He played mostly tackle, but they'd be looking at him as guard. And maybe we'll take Mr. Cabledew. I mean, we've drafted a lot of linemen, but I just don't hate it, to be honest. Like, there's Arian Smith, the speedster at receiver. I'm looking forward here to see if there's anyone else that jumps out. Let's do this. Let's take Bryce Cabledew. Even though we've already gotten a lot of linemen, you can't say that they didn't come out of this draft with a lot of beef. So here is the draft. Gray Zabel, Mason Taylor, Omar Norman Lott, Joshua Farmer, Savion Williams, Willie Lampkin, Kyle McCord, Ty Felton, Clay Webb, Bryce Cabledew. Not my favorite draft. Not my favorite draft. You know, I was kind of going around a few different places, would have switched some things around. I don't like the Mason Taylor pick that early. I think I would have gone another position. I really think Omar Norman Lott's going to be good, but we call that name a lot. No pun intended. Could have gone a different direction. I really like Josh Farmer. Like he's definitely a riser for me. Savion Williams, I'm only picking him because the Seahawks have had multiple contacts with him, and so I'm curious about what's going on there. Willie Lampkin's just a fun pick. You know, most likely would be a fullback for you, but could end up being a center. Kyle McCord, I think, is a fine 5th round quarterback. Like that's exactly what he should be. And I think he's got some arm talent that I like, but he's pretty stationary, so he doesn't have a lot of movement skills. That's why I think he's more of a classic quarterback. Ty Felton, I think he's a good receiver. I wouldn't sleep on Ty Felton, especially in the 5th round. Clay Webb's a great get in the 7th. I have no problems with that whatsoever. And Bryce Cabledew, you know, this is an interesting guy and one of the guys they had a 30 visit with. So they've met with every single one of these guys, some of them more than once. So not my favorite draft. I see that there's probably a lot of folks that don't like it as well. That's fine. But we're going to we're going to kind of go through a bunch of different machinations of this over time, and we'll figure it out together. Here's Matt McManus with a super chat. Says, Brian, there are 2 tackle prospects, Logan Brown and Jalen Travis, who have elite relative athletic scores. Do either of those guys have the ability to move inside to guard? I definitely don't think Jalen Travis is a guard. Logan Brown is a guy that could. I think Jalen Travis is like 6'8", if I remember right. And you just generally don't move. You don't move 6'8" players inside to guard very often. Logan Brown, 6'6". I think he definitely could be a guy you could see as a guard in the NFL. And here's what Lance Zierlein wrote about him. trait-based developmental tackle with 1 full season as a college starter. Brown is high cut. By the way, it's not usually a great fit for inside, but is usually quick laterally and athletic in space for a player who's plays so upright. He gets to zone blocking landmarks and is forceful with move contact, but his pad level limits his consistency as a man-to-man blocker. The ceiling and floor are both moving upward, and Brown has early swing tackle value and a chance to develop into an NFL starter. So he has him largely as a tackle, which is fine, but the zone blocking prowess, I think, is an interesting aspect there for Logan Brown. So, yeah, I mean, I like Jalen Travis as a swing tackle project. I mean, he's an absolute monster athlete and I think a pretty good player for his size at tackle. So, I'd be pretty excited if he's one of the day 3 picks that the Seahawks end up with. All right, folks, that is all she wrote. That is all all the visit stuff. If you missed the beginning, make sure you rewind and watch. I go through all the visits that the Seahawks have had over the last 3 years, how visits are pretty predictive of who the Seahawks are going to pick, and who they have confirmed to have visits with so far this year. So this is a show you'll probably want to come back to and re-reference a few times. So you might want to bookmark it, star it, whatever you do on YouTube or wherever you get your videos. Also, you'll get this show available on audio. So it's a little confusing for some folks that you see it twice on YouTube. There's going to be one version, which is this live video version. And then after it starts to proliferate on the audio podcast channels, it will show up here as an audio version as well under the Real Hawk Talk and HB Mornings playlist. So it's not a second version. It's just an audio only version. And you'll notice the difference because it'll have a different thumbnail. It'll just have the HB Mornings thumbnail for it. So keep an eye on that. Make sure you give us 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts. Only takes a moment and really, really helps the show. And also on Spotify or wherever you get your audio podcast. Would appreciate it. All right, folks. Here we go. We are 2 days away from episode 365. I will see you tomorrow, Monday, for episode 364. And then who knows what will happen on 365. Take care. See ya.